There could be another recruit in the pipeline for Texas A&M. Let's talk about it next on Locked On Aggies.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in. My name is Matt Galatzan, and I will be your host. I'm the publisher of Texas A&M Aggies on SI. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single day. Joining me today is my hardworking staff writer over at Texas A&M Aggies on SI, DJ Burton. DJ, as we all know, Texas A&M has been on a heater on the recruiting trail as of late. They suffered a couple of blows here and there, missing out on guys that they really wanted, but for the most part, it's been an absolute home run for Texas A&M so far, and it could be about to continue. And if anybody doesn't know, we recently hired a very good recruiting reporter over there at Texas A&M Aggies on this side named Landon Rosal. Landon has reported, and you can go check it out on our website as well, but Landon has reported that Texas A&M is in the lead for four-star safety from Pascagoula, Mississippi, Tylan Wilson. He is also, in Clemson and Arkansas are also in his top group, but he believes that he got a sourced report from a close source to Tylan Wilson that said it would shock a few people around this recruitment if A&M isn't the one when he announces. Obviously, this would be a huge addition to the class, another four-star defensive back. There's already a couple of those in the class already. But DJ, what do you think about the potential of Tylan Wilson to Texas A&M?
I think it's I think it'll be huge, honestly. I mean, he's 6', 180. I mean, he has the size to be an elite safety. Finished his junior year with 82 tackles, 4 picks. That's not much more you can ask for out of a safety. But he'll definitely complete that defensive back room that the Aggies have built with Chance Collins, Brandon Arrington, and especially now with Tamarian Watkins, whether he ends up playing linebacker or safety. He's a big guy, but they're shaping up to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I mean, we already saw Tamarian Watkins, which Landon reported earlier this week. I believe it was on Monday that Watkins committed. Now we have the potential of Tylan Wilson, who is making his decision on July 18th, the day before my birthday, which is on Friday. The scouting reports around this guy are absolutely incredible, right? So Cooper Patenga, the national recruiting analyst for 24/7 Sports, calls Wilson a position versatile back seven defender that shows the ability to play multiple positions in the secondary while flashing excellent on-ball instincts. Estimated at 6'2", 185 pounds, Wilson demonstrates the ability to operate as a middle-of-the-field safety in addition to being positioned as a corner and overhang safety. Most comfortable playing closer to the line of scrimmage. He has the ability to match up with bigger-bodied receivers and tight ends in the passing game while adding a strong presence as a run support defender and additional body in the box. Two-way player that also reps receiver on offense. The Magnolia State native utilizes his length and ball tracking ability exceptionally as a well-rounded defender, consistently putting himself in the area to make the play on the ball in the air. He projects as a multi-year above-average starter at the next level and will more than likely trend closer to the line of scrimmage positionally as he continues to fill out his 6'2" frame, which means he might be a middle of the field safety, deep safety right now, who's decent against the run. But as he progresses through that Texas A&M weight room and gets himself more involved and grows a little bit into his body, that he could, play a little bit closer to the box, maybe even potentially move to linebacker at some point, play a little off-ball linebacker. That sounds like a pretty exciting prospect to me. You mentioned some of his stats. He also played basketball in high school, which, just tells you the kind of athlete that he is, that he could play multiple sports and do it at a high level. 24/7 Sports has him ranked as the number 18 safety in the country, the number 10 player in Mississippi, and the number 231 player overall in the nation. And then if you go and you look at what Texas A&M has already in the 2026 class at defensive back, You talk about 4-star corner Victor Singleton. You talk about moving down the list here. You talk about 4-star corner Cameron Hamil, safety Chance Collins, and they have Tamarian Watkins listed as a linebacker, I believe, but he could play either. Let me see, where do they have him? Yeah, they have Tamarian Watkins listed as a linebacker on 24/7 Sports. I believe he will start off at safety, but he could play either way. He's a big body, athletic guy. DJ, do you think the Aggies are going to be, relatively close at least to being done at defensive back if they land Tylan Wilson like we all expect on Friday?
I think so. I mean, if you just look at the names on that list, you look at their stats, you look at what they did in high school. Those are all guys that can come in and compete. Whether it's for a starting role off the bat or sit behind some of the guys that they have already. But I could see them becoming content. I mean, I feel like they're not going to stop searching for guys, but I could see them being content with what they have.
Yeah, I mean, there's already a couple of guys on the radar still that they're looking at. Braylon Womack is a 5-star safety that I believe still has to make a decision. There's a couple other ones as well. Those are guys that, I feel like if they land Wilson on Friday, then they're going to be content. But if somebody else like a Braylon Womack or whoever else you might throw out there that's a highly rated recruit decides, hey, I want to go to A&M, they're not going to turn them away. They're going to say, yeah, you're a take as long as you fit our culture and our plan and our and all that stuff. So Braylon Womack would be one that I know for a fact that they would take if he picked them. So, but in the sense of really pushing to find more guys after this, I don't think that would be the case. So it would definitely be a big win for the Aggies. They currently are ranked number 3 overall recruiting class in the country. I believe, let me look at the recruiting ranking, the team recruiting rankings from the SEC. Yeah, so they're still second in the SEC behind Georgia, 3rd overall in the country. USC, according to 24/7 Sports, has the top recruiting class at number 1 overall. They have 31 commitments, which is just crazy in July to have 31 commitments in your 2026 class. 24 stars, 1 5-star, and 10 3-stars for USC. That's kind of wild. Texas A&M has 25, which is also a big number. They have 22 4-star recruits on their in their 2026 class so far. 1 5-star. This is all 24/7 Sports rankings. If you flipped over to On3 or something else, then it could potentially, those numbers could potentially change a little bit. But they are consistently ranked number 3 across all major recruiting services. So I don't know if they would move up these rankings if Tylan Wilson. There's still a pretty decent gap between them and Georgia for the number 2 spot. There's about an 8-point difference. Georgia at number 2 has a 300.84 overall score there from 24/7 Sports, and Texas A&M has a 292.05. I'm not sure. I'm not like the 24/7 Sports computer expert that figures out how all these rankings work and all that. So I don't know exactly how that point system works, but I feel like an 8-point gap is a pretty sizable gap, and it should be. Georgia's done a hell of a job, even though they just lost James Johnson to Texas yesterday. They have 28 commits, 2 5-stars, 19 4-stars, and 7 3-stars, and their average ranking is a 92.20. So, we'll see what happens. I think A&M fans should feel pretty good about it, though, don't you, DJ?
I agree. They should be pretty happy with the spot they're in. And honestly, if they land Tank Jones, the 5-star edge, and Wilson, I think they could potentially get up there, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's another 5-star that's out there that comes at a position where Texas A&M already has a lot of bodies and a lot of really good players like Bryce Perry-Wright, Tristan Gibbons. The list kind of goes on at defensive line for Texas A&M in this class so far. But that's Anthony Jones is another guy they would absolutely take, and he would shoot them up the rankings a little bit more. I do believe Texas A&M is still has a path to that number 1 overall class, so they're certainly in a good spot there. Speaking of recruiting, one of the major recruiting parts of recruiting that we have to deal with in today's landscape, I guess you would call it, is NIL. We're not going to get into some, any technical NIL jargon here, but we are going to talk about a hypothetical that was brought up the other day that I thought was very, very interesting. So stick with us after this break, and we'll be right back. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball, under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get it on. You can get on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the fourth quarter, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm a part of the action. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, DJ. NIL has become a major part of what college football is all about these days. It has its uses. I think there's some ways that it makes the game a little bit better. For example, I think these players deserve to get paid for putting their bodies on the line for 4 years, while these schools just rake in billions of dollars and use their if Marcel Reed 10 years ago. This we're going to get into this in a minute, but like if it was 10 years ago, Marcel Reed in a Marcel Reed jersey sold, he didn't get anything off of it. Now that's changed. And I think it's for the better. There's still some issues to work out, obviously, a lot of issues, actually. But, one of the interesting conversations that's come up in all of this is that, how would older players, previous stars before the NIL era, how would that have affected them back then? And I thought one of the more interesting ones in terms of Texas A&M was Johnny Manziel. So as we all remember, Johnny Manziel was arguably the biggest name in college football. I don't think there was really much question about it at that time. He was the biggest thing in college football that there was. And all Aggie fans remember, Heisman Trophy winner, took the Aggies to, I believe it was a 10-2 regular season in 2012 in their first year in the SEC. And then next year wasn't as good, but that team wasn't as good, so it is what it is. But then after only 2 seasons in College Station, Johnny decides to head to the NFL. But according to Johnny himself, if NIL was a thing back then, the way it is today, he might have stayed for another year or maybe even 2. He told Greg McElroy in an interview recently, "I would have taken a pay cut had I gone to the NFL. I think no matter what, being in the NIL era, if that would have just been the equivalent of 2013, I would have stayed no matter what, just because a couple $1,000,000 in College Station goes a really, really long way. And you go to the NFL, you're a first-round pick, you sign for $10 million or whatever that is, the 2 years that I had remaining at Texas A&M to be able to make through a NIL deal. So for me, when I think about it back about it now, if there had been any real money involved, I definitely would have stayed no matter what." DJ, you're an Aggie, lifelong Aggie, I would assume.
Yep.
What do you think about all how, what does this look like in with hindsight being 2020? Do you wish that this NIL would have been, available back then? And how much money do you think Johnny would have commanded back then? Because he was the biggest thing in football at the time. NFL, college football, it was all anybody was talking about.
I think Johnny would have never wanted to leave college, period. He just would have been, he probably could have bought parts of the school with how much money that he would have been making. But I mean, like you said, a couple $1 million would get him a long way in College Station. I couldn't imagine, but I think I think it definitely would have kind of straightened the ship for the rest of his career. Because since he was kind of doing everything under the table here, he didn't have anybody to kind of say like, "Hey, dude, like chill out, like you got to lock in." But I mean, if he had this money coming from big companies trying to, get him to use his name, image, and likeness, they would have to sit him down and say, "Hey, Johnny, you can't keep doing what you're doing every day." And I think that would have led to a longer NFL career for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can jump into the hypothetical. So he was in College Station in 2012 and 2013, and then he went to the NFL. If he had stayed in 2014, we'll start there. These are some of the guys that he could have played with on that team, and it sounds pretty damn enticing to me to be potentially on a team with some of these guys. Running backs, Trey Carson, Brandon Williams, and Trey Williams, all of whom went to the NFL. Wide receivers, Malcolm Kennedy, Josh Reynolds, Ricky Seals-Jones, and Speedy Noyle, all of whom, two of those guys went to the NFL, all of whom were very good at Texas A&M. On defense, you had Myles Garrett, you had Deshaun Hall, you had a Toro Alaka, all NFL guys, DeShazer Everett, Devontae Harris, Armani Watts, Donovan Wilson, Drew Kaiser, and kicker Josh Lambo. I mean, that's a lot of NFL players on one roster. And if Johnny had the opportunity to play with what we can look back at his final year in 2013, he had a bunch of these guys on the team as well. And he had Mike Evans and he had Ricky Seals-Jones, but he didn't have Josh Reynolds. He didn't have Myles Garrett. So those are two pretty big pieces to add to the puzzle there. And there's a couple other guys on there that were new to the team as well. And then if you extrapolate it over to 2015, you still have Trey Carson and Brandon Williams at running back. You have Christian Kirk had joined the roster at this point, so his receivers would have been Ricky Seals-Jones, Christian Kirk, Damian Ratley, Josh Reynolds, Speedy Noyle. I mean, that's 5 really good receivers for Texas A&M. He had some NFL offensive linemen that entered the fray: Eric McCoy, Jermaine Illuminor, Jermaine Ifedi, Coda Martin, Keaton Sutherland, and then you still had Myles Garrett, Deshaun Hall, and Dalen Mack had joined the roster at that point. So, man, it's. I mean, there's also a ton of NFL defensive backs that I didn't even read off that were also on the team as well. I mean, I don't know if so Texas A&M went in 2015, that year that I just read off, they went 8-5. In 2014, they went 8-5. What do you think your record projection would be for those two teams, DJ, had Johnny stayed, instead of the quarterbacks being in 2014, it was Kyle Allen and Kenny Hill were the two quarterbacks. Kenny Hill was the starter. And in 2015, it was Kyle Allen that started, and Kyler Murray kind of got involved in it. But Kyle Allen was your main starter. What would those Aggie teams have looked like, man?
It would have to be at least 10 wins, right? Like, I can't fathom that amount of NFL talent on a roster with a Johnny Manziel that was playing the way he was in college. Like I just can't. I can't like. It's almost too good to be true because it really was. But
yeah,
I think it definitely would have changed the program for a long time.
Yeah, and as we all know, I believe if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to look this up right now just to make sure I have my facts straight, so nobody jumps down my throats in the comments. But I believe the college football playoffs started in 2014. Is that right? Let me see. Yes, it started in 2014. 12-1 Alabama, 12-1 Oregon, 13-0 Florida State, and 12-1 Ohio State were the teams that made it that year. 2015, it was Clemson, Alabama, Michigan State, and Oklahoma. I don't know if Texas A&M would have necessarily had, a 12-1 or 13-0 record, because that in those times, you look at the national champions, you're dealing with or the college football playoff semifinal games, you're dealing with Nick Saban in his prime, right? Alabama. You're dealing with Urban Meyer, Ohio State, a team that had Ezekiel Elliott and Cardale Jones, like all these players. Baker Mayfield, Oklahoma is in on that. Clemson, absolutely tremendous Clemson football team. Marcus Mariota, I believe, was the 2004 the quarterback for the 2014 Oregon Ducks. So there's a lot of talent there, and I don't know if they would have necessarily gotten to the 12-1. I guess it would be 12-0 or 11-1 type record where they could have propelled themselves into the college football playoff. But man, it's sure fun to think about. I mean, this guy is probably the most marketable athlete in the history of Texas A&M sports, and that's saying a lot, because there's been some good players that have come through. Do you think they could have challenged for a national championship, DJ?
See, that's the tough part. Part of me really, really wants to say yes, but at the end of the day, you're playing in the SEC, and not just any part of the SEC. It's the Nick Saban, just elite era of SEC football. And so
yeah,
you could look at that schedule and point out at least 2 almost guaranteed losses every year if you're not Nick Saban and those guys.
So let's look at their schedule real quick before we move on to our next topic. In 2015, they lost to Alabama. They lost to Ole Miss, which I believe I was at that game. They lost to Auburn, and they lost to they lost to LSU. That was and they lost to Louisville in the bowl game, but that we're not counting that one for the purposes of this conversation. We're just doing regular season. So, I feel like you at least get 2 of those games back. Like, maybe you don't beat Alabama, but I'm pretty sure you beat Auburn. I'm pretty sure you beat LSU. Both those games were pretty low scoring for the Aggies. Ole Miss just demolished them by 20 points. So you probably go 10-2 in the regular season, and that's not enough to make it in 2015. And then in 2014, they lost 5 of their last 7 games in the regular season, which is atrocious.
Oh my gosh.
They started 5-0, and then they lost to Mississippi State. They lost to Ole Miss. They got shut out 59-0 by Alabama, and then they lost to Missouri and LSU to end the regular season. I don't know that Johnny Manziel is enough to make up for 59-0 against Alabama, 35-20 against Ole Miss, and 48-31 against Mississippi State. He might be enough to get you past Missouri and LSU in those other 2 losses, but those 3 losses in the middle of the season were just absolutely brutal. I don't know if any quarterback could have gotten you through that one. The defense was just not good in those games. So it's interesting to think about. It looks like they still wouldn't have made the playoff in either year, at least in our opinion. But maybe Johnny would have changed the entire dynamic of the program by staying for a couple of years. Who knows? But next, we're going to talk about some current Aggies. We're going to dive into a little conversation about SEC Media Days. We're going to talk about it for a few minutes, and just some of our favorite takeaways from SEC Media Days so far in terms of Texas A&M. So stick with us on the other side of this break, and we'll be right back. All right, DJ. It has been a week. That is saying something. I have been in Atlanta. I was only there for approximately 36 hours, but I somehow find myself absolutely exhausted from a 36-hour trip. I went out there to cover some Texas stuff and just to get a whole, do some radio out there, do some other stuff. But it was a great time. And one of the things that I really took away from it, just from a broad perspective, is there's a lot of people talking about Texas A&M. And they get asked the questions by some Texas A&M media, but there's also some stuff that's been brought up that it hasn't necessarily been asked that people are just impressed with. One question that was asked that might be one of my favorite quotes that I've heard so far concerning the Aggies from SEC Media Days was Mississippi State head coach Jeff Lebby talking about Texas A&M wide receiver Mario Craver. He said, he's our guy that had the ability to make big plays and stretch the field. And between the white lines, that's who he was. That's who he was in high school, and that didn't change. So he went on to say a few more other things, but that's the meat of the quote there. And that's very promising to hear from Jeff Lebby, because we know what Casey Concepcion can do at wide receiver. But outside of that, we don't really have a full painted picture of what Texas A&M is going to have at that position because they lost so many guys. They got Ashton Bethel-Roman returning, and Mario Craver's coming in, Jonah Wilson's coming in, but we don't know what those guys are going to do. I was pretty high on Mario Craver myself, but it's really nice to hear that Jeff Lebby's blowing him up as a playmaker and saying some good things about him in that sense.
Yeah, I agree. It feels like, especially with this transfer class that the Aggies brought in, the main guy you've been hearing things about are Kevin Concepcion. It's been all him, but I think Mario Craver honestly might have a chance to be almost more productive, if not just as productive than Concepcion, and that's just out of his ability to stretch the field and just get open. Whereas Concepcion's that utility kind of guy that you're going to look for on the short passes, the drag routes, the slants. Concepcion's he's just going to be there on the deep ball.
Yeah, Craver, you mean, is going to be there on the deep ball. And I totally agree. And he operates so well in the middle of the field as well. I mean, last year against Texas A&M with Mississippi State, I believe he made a couple of big plays in that game too. So they kind of got an up close and personal view of what he could do. So I'm pretty excited about him. I'm happy that Jeff Lebby is still giving him his flowers, even though he left Starkville in the dust to head to College Station. But what was your favorite thing that you've heard so far from SEC Media Days, DJ?
Probably my favorite thing is definitely the amount of quarterbacks that are talking about Marcel Reed's ability, but not just his ability, but who he is as a person. Arch Manning and Garrett Nussmeier were both asked about Reed, and they spent some time with him at the Manning Passing Academy. And they both said, oh, he's a great quarterback. I can't wait to play him. But honestly, to me, what's almost more important is they were both like, oh, yeah, he's a great guy. We love spending time with him. Like, we're going to be rooting for him all season. And that almost says more about his character than his play ever could.
Yeah, no, that's a great thing to hear. One of the things that's so important about a quarterback is his ability to get the team to buy in and become a leader. And it sounds like everybody really, really enjoys being around Marcel, including guys that he's going to be playing against next season. And he wasn't the only those weren't the only two quarterbacks that I heard say that either. I believe Lenora Sellers said some good things about Marcel Reed. Blake Shapen earlier this morning said some good things about Marcel Reed, and both of them shared the same sentiment that Arch Manning and Garrett Nussmeier did as well. So great stuff to hear. We're going to have more from SEC Media Days as the week goes by. It's been a little bit of a slow week for Aggie fans because Texas A&M doesn't go until tomorrow. So once tomorrow hits, we're going to be able to talk about SEC Media Days nonstop for probably a week because we're going to have so much audio and different takeaways from that. But stick with us, and tomorrow we'll have some more from there. We're going to be talking to a guy that I have on the ground covering Texas A&M out there in Atlanta for us. So he'll have some firsthand knowledge of what's going on over there. So stay tuned for that. But that's going to do it for another episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, please check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings across college football. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes of the college football landscape. And you can find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. DJ, where can they find you?
You can find me at DJ Burton on Twitter or X, and it's right there on nameplate.
Yeah, and it's Twitter. It's never going to be X, so I'm tired of hearing Twitter. And don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, give me a follow over on Texas A&M Aggies on SI and on X at Matt Galatzan, and we will see you next time.